I've always been fascinated by ghost stories and how we can connect to the history and the mystery of the properties and the locations. And there really hadn't been a good book on Fredericksburg written in a long time that really combined the history and the mystery.
What's it like to write a book like this?
This was actually one of my easiest books to write. It just kind of flowed. I was, you're always nervous putting something out like this because you're always wanting to be, as a historian, be as accurate as possible. But I found that the writing process for this one was actually remarkably easy.
Well, there are so many stories around here, and you limited it to kind of historical spots.
And also I wanted places where the general public and visitors could actually come and visit and see for themselves and also learn about the history of Fredericksburg. As I say in my book, this is not the definitive account of all the ghosts here in Fredericksburg.
But one of the things you point out is, at least in this book, all the ghosts are friendly.
Yes, I see a lot of the hauntings is residual, which is like the memory of the past. So they don't really interact with the living, but the ones that do, they seem to be a rather friendly bunch.
So before you wrote this book, or before you came to the Mary Washington House, did you believe in this kind of stuff?
I always have been. I've always kind of been that weird person, but also I had worked in the Whaley House in Old Town San Diego, which is known as America's Most Haunted. So I had seen a lot of interesting or paranormal things, but also understanding that these were real people and that they're having stories to tell.
So you've experienced some things here at the Mary Washington House.
Yes, as I said in my book, it's very gentle. It's very like a tea drinking spirit in here. Is mainly pranks. I talk about in my book where we've had things get knocked off in the gift shop. We've had paper off my desk every once in a while will get messed up. Former employee had her soda bottle turned upside down on her desk. It's just very gentle, very playful, very whimsical hauntings.
Was this? I'm trying to remember. Was it here where there was this huge noise upstairs, and you went upstairs and nothing had. You said put everything back, and you went upstairs and nothing was out of place.
Yes, that happened. Yeah, we heard this giant slamming, almost sounded like one of the partition boards had not been knocked over, and I realized I have to be the brave one to go upstairs to do, and I didn't know I was going to see. I'm like, okay, guys, whatever you've done, you better put it back.
So it seems like that there's a lot of talking between you and and people that deal with this. You talk to them. You have to,
because again, either they're here or every house has their character, has their personality, and so sometimes we talk to the property all the time. I mean, it's just one of those things. It's a living being.
It's so interesting when you go through this book with all the historic sites. That just about every historic site in the area has some kind of a story to tell.
It does, because we have such a rich history here in Fredericksburg. We have colonial, we have Native American, indigenous populations. We have the history of enslavement. We have the history of Civil War, Reconstruction, and the civil rights. This is just a very rich historical town.
How long did it take you to compile all these stories?
I have been compiling them for a while, so just putting everything together. The process itself was about 6 months to write. And also in this one, I was on a time limit because I had to respond to a publisher, so it kept me really honing down and keeping me on track.
And it's out before Halloween.
Yes, and that was part of the reason that they wanted it to be out before Halloween.
So, without giving away the book, and there's so many stories that we could sit and talk about, but get the book and read it. Is there one that's particular, and you don't even have to go into a lot of detail if you don't want to, but is there one or two that are your particular favorites?
My particular favorite is on the Chatham chapter. That one was a difficult chapter to write because the history is so dark, but also to making sure that I was getting the history right. So that one was a particularly important chapter. And then also, I think I'm also proud of the Hugh Mercer Apothecary Shop chapter because it gives us another sense about loyalism and people who were loyalists during the American Revolution.
You think of just the battles and the deaths here. It's not surprising when you look at what's happened.
No, it's not. I mean, we're such a rich history, and again, it's in the land. It's here in the land because here in the Mary Washington House during the American Civil War, we had 6 Union soldiers buried in the backyard. 5 of them are unknown. They're all now in the National Cemetery, but this fact that it touched the ground everywhere, you can't go over somewhere that hasn't been touched by the past.
I guess you hear every so often about new stories, new ghosts.
Yeah, or old ghosts doing new tricks. Like a couple of weeks ago, I'm in the middle of writing a couple of reports for the site, and they overnight my papers on my desk I scattered all across my office.
Wow. So the book, where can we get it?
You can find it on Amazon, but it's also available locally here in Fredericksburg at our Books A Million and Barnes & Noble's. On October 19th, I'm going to be having a book signing at the Central Park Barnes & Noble's, which also has a chapter devoted to it, too.
I was just going to say, you talk about that one I was not expecting.
That's one of the newer ones, and I got that because I'm in there so often, and the staff know what I'm interested in, and they start telling me stories about their ghosts in Barnes & Noble's.
So you're interested, obviously, in history. Are you thinking about what your next book might be?
I got two, one paranormal and one history in the works. So yes.